Love is the opening door. It's what you came here for. Ain't that the truth? Thank you, Heather, for that beautiful rendition, and friends. I remember once, myself, I did a production of a musical called The Rink when I was in high school with a local theater group. The Rink was a Cheetah Rivera and Liza Minnelli vehicle that flopped after about 200 performances on Broadway. It was about a mother and a daughter who reunited at a skating rink where the daughter grew up that her mother owned, and the rink was there to be demolished. So it's a grand time to dredge up old hurts and try to heal them through song and dance, like any good musical does. It was pretty high concept, though, when the main characters meet. There are these 6 demolition workers on site, and the 2 women relive a lot of their past. The 6 wreckers play all of the other roles throughout all of the lives of the women, like a Greek chorus, with lots and lots of costume changes. Oh, and there were dance numbers on roller skates. Now, I remember one performance when I was talking to a friend after the show, and he asked me, who was that girl? That girl in the dance number in the rink? And I wasn't sure if he was kidding. He went on, yeah, I looked in the program and I couldn't figure it out. Who was she? Who played Sugar? And I had the sense my friend wanted to meet her, or maybe ask her out. I think he wanted me to introduce him to her. So I felt a little funny when I had to tell him, I did. That was me. He looked at me and he said, what do you mean? And I explained a little more clearly that the girl, the one he saw in that scene, was in fact me. I asked if he'd noticed that all the other men played women at some point as well. Was the look in his eyes a look of surprise? Maybe. Was he thinking of asking me out? Could be. It was a tricky expression to read. Now, you can hardly blame the guy. I mean, Sugar was pretty damn cute. The costume designer constructed me a dress with padding in all the right places for my leaner high school frame. It was turquoise with black polka dots. The wig folks on the group really got it right with a classic Farrah Fawcett look, and I practiced the heck out of dancing in 3-inch heels while carrying off a thick Brooklyn accent. But while I was feeling my triumph as a character actor, I still wonder what my friend was feeling. Maybe a little door was opening in his mind, if you know what I mean. June is Pride Month, though. Throughout most of the country, they will celebrate Pride this month and the world. And our theme for June is also love, which, as many of us know, is sometimes loosely translated as what here in Hawaii? Aloha. Don't ask Stuart about Aloha Hawaii, friends. But don't go looking for a parade this month in Honolulu. Honolulu holds its Pride Parade in October, a month when increasing tourism is more important or likely. Competing with Pride events in New York and Atlanta and San Francisco, just to name a few, all of whom celebrate Pride in June, makes October in Honolulu a much more attractive sell for those trying to support the tourism industry here. So I confess to my own desire to celebrate this event in the month when most of the rest of the world does. I personally have so many wonderful memories of Pride events. I remember the New York City Pride, the year the New York legislature legalized gay marriage. It was passed just days before the parade, and the celebration was like none I'd ever seen. It was more heartfelt than many of the more, shall we say, exhibitionist expressions of that particular parade in the past. Hillary Clinton was actually the grand marshal of the parade, and the jubilance from the pulsing parade floats bumping across Christopher Street in the Village was electric. And celebrations like that one are what many of us think about in Pride Month. The recollection of events at Stonewall more than 5 decades ago when queer activists had enough, when they fought back against hate, against persecution, against fear, against, it seemed, the world. It was a powerful beginning, but it wasn't the whole journey. Over the past few decades, and more so, over the past few years, diversity in an important part of the beings of those we love and care about are coming more and more into light. Love is the opening door. The ways that people identify their gender is changing. You hear me identify my gender when I first address the group here, and you see it on my online name here, my preferred pronouns. As one of our members pointed out today and another a few weeks ago in the chat box, I seem to enjoy to some people proclaiming my maleness with these pronouns and suggesting instead using we as a more appropriate pronoun. That was very thoughtful and a very beautiful idea, and rightly grounded in that member's identity as a feminist. I really do love this church and its thoughtful members. I just have to say that. Because on one level, there is beauty and hope in using a collective pronoun rather than a personally possessive one. It's also kind of communist and Borg-like, if you're a Trekkie, depending on your view. And on another level, the chance to use the royal we in regular conversation is almost too alluring to turn down for me. And it's also a suggestion that comes from a place of searching for a word or a name that works for everyone. We. The challenge is this, though. No one word will work for all people. Many people with gender identities outside of the dominant gender identities feel that suggesting a one-word-fits-all solution erases the identities they've strived for a lifetime to understand and express with pride to others. The time of we may one day come, but it may not be here for some of our siblings. Many of our precious siblings in the world today are building a new way toward a new understanding of their own gender identity, not just for others, but for themselves. Many of us know this who took the Our Whole Lives program. But just so we are on the same page, let's start. Sex and gender are not the same thing for anyone. One's sex is determined by their body according to norms established for a particular sex, and most children have a sex assigned at birth when it's written on a birth certificate based on the body the doctors see the new baby has. Some people are born with male and female sex organs. It's not as rare as you may think, and they are known as intersex. In the LGBTQIA+ language, our intersex siblings are the I. Some parents decide to assign a sex on behalf of the child with a surgical procedure, and some do not decide to do this, allowing a child a say in how to handle their own sex when they are ready to do so. But whenever it happens, physical characteristics of a body are what determine a sex. So let's talk about gender. There is a damaging narrative out there floating around about gender. That narrative is that one's gender conforms with one's sex. I'm so glad to tell you that is not true. We're not talking about some recent decision by a left-wing psychological association. The American Psychological Association has held this opinion unequivocally for more than a decade. I could get into the terrible history of thinking of these two things as the same thing, sex and gender, and I promise you it is a terrible history of denial, misunderstanding, medical malfeasance, and trauma, and it's a history worth investigating for all of us this month. But as our song tells us, love is the opening door, friends. You know what I mean? Have your eyes really seen? Had my friends' eyes really seen? Had they seen a person on stage he wanted to get to know? Maybe someone, a beautiful or at least available, young woman dancing under a glitter ball in 3-inch heels, and had he wondered what holding her hand would be like, or even what kissing her would be like. And in the stunned look in his eyes at my explanation to him, did I see a glimpse of recognition that maybe what our eyes tell us is not the whole truth. Because gender, friends, is very often described as a performance. We perform gender. I selected this Aloha shirt. Well, my father gave it to me. And these pants are cut in a certain way. I trim my hair like this, I grow my beard, and I choose attributes that cultures I interact with and identify with as part of the male gender for my performance of gender. It's a choice. It's a type. And the old French root for gender, anyone want to take a guess? I know some of us speak French. Genre, as in I choose a genre like on Netflix. And I think genre is a better way to think of gender. We select a genre, a subgenre, and perform that for our audience in the world. And thinking in this way here is especially important. Many of us here are settlers in a land where healing, faith, and cultural traditions recognize a gender other than male and female, mahu. The international success of the animated film Kapemahu, produced by educator and activist Kumuhina, tells the story of the arrival of 4 healers to these lands from Tahiti whose genders did not conform to male or female. And the importance of this work, the healers in this work, the leaders on this work, did to teach and to heal the people of these lands are literally monuments today. Resting right off the coast of the most popular beach on the island, maybe in the world, Waikiki, where there are 4 stones called the Kape Mahu, which in one translation means a row of mahu, but in others means actually the arrival of mahu. They stand there today reminding all that we are more than what others might see, so much more. What genre are we really? Gender bending, or gender blending as some call it, has for years marked some of the great artistic endeavors of humans, from Ziggy Stardust for the Bowie fans out there to virtually every Shakespearean comedy where one character takes on trappings of a gender that is new to them, and others, and on and on. And beautifully, there are now many, and mostly, if it is younger people, are choosing to express their gender in ways that intentionally do not conform to dominant gender norms. Moving away from binary expressions of gender allows a person to choose to perform aspects of different genders in their daily life. This is an expression of gender that seeks to be true to the needs or the internal truth of the person's feelings about themselves. Or someone's just doing it for fun because they feel like it. And that's fine. That is fun, and they should do it with pride. Because friends, as we heard in our reading, it is deadly serious work. You know what I mean? In their book, Sissy, A Coming of Gender Story, Jacob Tobiah offers these words about growing up outside of the dominant genders. Their words: when I was pushed to the brink of loneliness and gender agony as a third gender, when I didn't know how to communicate with the adults in my life about what was going on, I channeled my anger at my own body, my own existence. When the world made who I was feel impossible, I began to see my own body as an impossibility. For years of my life, I told myself this was normal, that kids just thought about killing themselves all the time, that every third gender had experienced that. In order to move on with my life, I had to normalize it. Jacob does not identify with a distinct gender, but rather as gender non-conforming. Jacob uses they pronouns today as part of the way they have found to heal from gender-based trauma they endured in their life. And you only need to look as far as our offertory guest, the amazing Deborah Smith, whose outreach center is located about 2 miles from where I am standing, to know the role that gender and gender nonconformity play in the pain and trauma in the lives of those in our community who are the most vulnerable and who are right before our very eyes. Have your eyes really seen? And yet here in this very community, I know that people are critical of the practice of offering the use of gender pronouns when speaking. I have emailed, I have explained, I have spoken at length, and otherwise tried to help people understand how offering our preferred pronouns allow people like Jacob who have suffered incredible trauma from a conformity-driven society to feel free to request to be referred to by their own preferred pronouns without making them feel once again that they must fight for recognition of their gender preference. I've gone so far as to think about insisting that everyone use they, their pronouns when referring to me until we can all learn how deeply important it is. But love is the opening door, friends. It's the door of aloha, a door we choose to open, not one pried open by an activist minister. Because here's the thing. Practicing love, embodying aloha in this way, isn't that important to our siblings like Jacob. They've been through a lot and are tougher than many give them credit for. Just like in our reading, in the way Orphan has been through so much, and it is certainly not that important to me. I can handle myself. Building this new way of speaking, of welcoming, of aloha, is most important to the person who denies or refuses to see the power in creating a place where all can be free to be themselves from word one. Have your eyes really seen? Do you know what I mean? How free do you want to be? See, we are all victims of gender-based trauma. Some of us have been ridiculed for not fitting into a particular genre of manhood, while others might be criticized for displaying qualities that are too mannish. Others of us have been told we don't fit the expectations of genre of womanhood, while others have been criticized for displaying attributes of a woman's gender. And like Jacob Tobias explains, it's not the comments from the external sources about our gender and whether we are living up to the expectations society has for that gender that hurt us the most. How we examine, criticize, harm, and hide ourselves. What we do to ourselves over these norms and the powerful society that pushes us to fit in them. That's where the pain is. That's where the anguish lies. That is where too many suffer too needlessly for too long. Jacob Tobias' words again. Perhaps the greatest oversight of the trans movement thus far is that it has positioned gender-based trauma as something that only trans people experience. As a result, there are millions of cisgendered, heterosexual people, particularly men, who have never coped with the trauma they've experienced, who don't even recognize their experiences as trauma in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that all of us should go around explaining to folks in the trans community that we were equally traumatized by gender norms, but Tobias recognizes something so clear in the powerful reading Karen and Richard offered this morning. The trauma caused by rigid application of gender norms affects more, many, many more than those whose gender does not conform with society's expectations. It affects us all every day. But friends, it's a choice. You know what I mean? This land's great teachers, great healers who ventured here from afar to pass on knowledge and understanding about spirits, about health, about healing, about aloha, silently and solidly as stones looking out over the ocean, assure us that there is a rainbow of ways to think, to feel, and to believe about gender. And that maybe seeing one another more clearly, more openly, can actually be the beginning of healing the trauma so many needlessly endure. They showed us a new way, friends. Our faith, the way we believe here or the way we don't believe here, calls us to look at our first principle to see the inherent worth and dignity of every person in our midst, and calls us into our eighth principle, to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions. Where? In ourselves and in our institutions. And where gender is concerned, this doesn't only mean dismantling the ways we think others should fit into gender norms. Yeah, that's good. That's important. but it also means dismantling the ways we feel we each must fit into the gender norms of society. We gotta build a new way, friends. The dance each of us is doing in 3-inch heels or not, the genres or genders we flow in and out of daily, hourly, the performance we give to the world, to ourselves, can be new every day, can open new eyes every day, can help us see our friends, ourselves, our siblings with the pride of parents who have claimed a child once lost to them, yet found. Every day we can come aboard this island, the island many have created, and come ashore once more until the inward sadness is transformed into dancing, until the inward sickness is transformed into healing, until the inward bitterness it's transformed into a life, a presence, a being that is sweeter than any sugar we could ever possibly know. This is the promise of a faith that knows no boundaries of understanding or belief. This is the promise of a land that calls out aloha to a hurting world and offers a way of being that could heal the heart of the world. This is the promise of a people, of us, who together are building unceasingly, unendingly, unashamedly a new era, a new world, a new way. This is the promise we came here for. The promise, the ending of the only performance in the only genre, in the only life any one of us will ever have. A love story. That's what we came here for. For the love. Happy Pride, friends, and may it ever be so. Blessed be, and amen.